Coming up on Friday, November 8th, the Robbins Theater in downtown Warren. Man, do we have a big show commemorating Ruf Records' big 30th anniversary. And it is a star-studded show, including Samantha Fish, Bernard Ellison, Canned Heat, Ghalia Volt, and the one and only Mitch Ryder from the Detroit Wheels. And Mitch is with us here this afternoon. Mitch, thanks for taking some time out. What's going on, man? How you been?
I've been busy.
It sounds like it. Tell us a little bit about this big show here for the Ruf Records. First of all, tell us a little bit about Ruf Records, and then we'll talk about some of the people that are on this bill.
Well, the record company is in Germany, and I have developed an alternate career over there because essentially what I had over here was either being part of a package or working on weekends and being treated as a legend. And that wasn't as lucrative as what I was doing in Europe. I've developed since 1979, a very loyal following, especially in Germany. And so I signed with this record company called Ruf Records. Thomas Ruf is the guy that owns the record company, and he does a caravan of his stars, people that are signed to his label. And all of the acts you mentioned, including myself, are all signed to him at this moment. And so we do this tour, and this will be the first one I've done. So I don't really know a lot to tell you about it, but, it's going to be my first experience. And if it's like any other tour, going way back to when Dick Clark did his tours, which I was involved in those, I imagine nothing much has changed in the way that works.
Right. So now you got involved with Ruf Records because, like you say, you didn't want to be like on a quote-unquote oldie show or something like that. You still have a lot of music in you that you feel that you want to get out there, and it seems like this Ruf Records is the avenue to get that out there. Plus, you got these loyal fans in Europe that are very interested in what you're doing.
We put out a double vinyl. It was of 2 live recordings that we did, and it turned out to be an excellent musical choice. But I just completed a studio album produced by Don Was here in Detroit, and that will be released in November in time to support our European tour.
Right.
So, yeah, we're busy. We're just extremely busy.
Yeah, you got a lot going on at this point.
Yeah, I signed a new manager, and so we expect a lot to come from that as well.
So that's got to be pretty exciting for you too, man. I mean, you're still out there swinging, and that's got to make you feel good.
It does. It's certainly not a negative.
Yeah. Now you've been at this for a long time, and how did you get started? How did you get started in the music business? What made you want to get out there and do what you do?
I cut my first record when I was 16 years old for a gospel label in Detroit. And then I put out another record in Detroit with a group which later became the Detroit Wheels. And nothing happened with that locally. But it caught the attention of a producer in New York who took us there and made the hits that he made with us. And then the group broke up, and for those, out of a 59-year career that I have, those 3 years with the Wheels were the most impactful in terms of getting hit records. But since that time, I've had a wonderful career as well. And I did return to the charts in 1983, finally, after that album that was produced by John Mellencamp occurred.
Right.
And I had the single "When You Were Mine." And so just things just keep falling into place. And as long as I can sing, I'll be up there and doing it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Now, Detroit, you call Detroit Rock City. And when you look at the history of how many entertainers have come out there, everything from Motown to, Madonna and Eminem and Bob Seger and Grand Funk Railroad and the Detroit Wheels and all these great bands. What is it about Detroit that produces all this musical talent?
I don't think you have too many choices. if you're a young man or woman and you want to do something with your life, make a career, basically it's either going to be through athletics or music. For people that aren't born into wealth, those are the two avenues of seeking recognition.
Now, when you look at Detroit and the audiences in Detroit, would you say that Detroit was kind of a tough place to play and that you had to be good to win these audiences over?
I think, when you're up against manufactured stuff coming out of New York and LA, and you're coming from Detroit, in order to compete and impress people, because you don't have the PR and the news outlets that you have in those major cities. So you have to do it some other way. And that other way is to outperform your competition.
And you had some stiff competition back then. I mean, all these bands that I had mentioned earlier. Now, was the club scene like that? I mean, was it like on a Friday night? Did you have Bob Seger at this place and the Amboy Dukes over here, and Ellis Cooper here?
Yeah, it was like that. It was like that.
So it was that competitive of a scene. Yeah,
of course. And then, of course, once we got to New York, we had to battle the British invasion as well.
Right. Oh, you know what? I saw somewhere, and I meant to ask you this. Now you're talking about it, because what was the show? Oh, you were you were the last person to play with Otis Redding, correct?
Yeah, that was for a TV show out of Cleveland called Upbeat.
Right. I saw that, and the reason I was going to bring that up too, and that you mentioned that, Benjamin Orr, the bass player from the Cars, had a band called the Grasshoppers, and they were a regular on that show as well. And that's how him and Rick Ocasek met up through that TV show, and formed the Cars from there. So yeah, that's just another one of those Ohio connections there that. It's just like this whole, Great Lakes region. There's just something about it. And like you say, if you didn't want to go work in the car factory and you wanted to do something a little different, either you picked up a football, you put on some boxing gloves, or you picked up a guitar and tried to make it that way. You were the last person to perform with Otis Redding. Tell me a little bit about Otis Redding, because it seems like he was one of those guys that was just on the verge of hitting it big. Did you think of that? Did you feel that way?
Well, yeah. If you listen to black music when you were a teenager, you realize that it was way before Sitting on the Dock of the Bay that he was a force to be reckoned with. But that was his number one record. After he died, that record shot to number one.
Right.
Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. But he was in the when I was down at Stax, I briefly met him there, and then we did that show together. And the only thing I came away, besides being really feeling blessed and honored to be in his company, he was a tall man. He was much taller than me. And we were singing together, and he put his right hand on my right shoulder, and he started to sway. And every time he'd sway to the left, my right foot would come up off the floor. That's what I remember most of that thing.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, when you look back on those days, how about radio stations? What were some of the radio stations or DJs that you listened to, or who were some of the people in radio that helped you along back then? And who were the popular guys, and who was making it happen in Detroit? I mean, was CKLW big at the time? And
CKLW was Canadian, actually.
Right.
And Rosalie was the big name. And if you wanted to get something played, you had to be in Rosalie's favor. And that was a big signal they were sending out. It covered Ohio. It went all the way down to Tennessee.
Yeah.
And so, it had a lot of power. And that's who you wanted to see. Locally, we had WKNR. I don't know what these call letters would mean to anybody in Ohio.
Right.
just as I wouldn't know what your call letters would
Oh,
be.
no. Wait, no, this Y103, that's not world renowned.
You're WYFM, that's who you are.
You know, isn't that world renowned? I mean, isn't that the whole thing when you saw, I can't believe
No,
I'm going to be on Y103?
It came to my mind. And a lot of people don't know that Fast Freddie was actually the name that you borrowed. Apparently came out of a speakeasy during the Mafia years. But we're not going to talk about that.
Yeah. We especially, hey, you know, Youngstown, you know, we are a pretty big mob town here, too. That's another thing I think we have in common with Detroit, you know, besides automaking. Oh, yeah, back in the day, man, that was something else. Did you ever, like, come across, like, some mob clubs you had to play or end up with some?
Yeah, I did. In Boston, for example, where after we were leaving, the club owner and his partner were shooting live bullets into our van as we were leaving.
Oh, man. Well, there's a thing out there, if you look it up on the internet, on YouTube somewhere, there's a story about Richard Pryor talking about, he was a comedian for this stripper. I think her name was China Doll, if I'm not mistaken. And anyways, they played a mob club in Youngstown, and the mob didn't want to pay him. And Richard Pryor went in there to try to get the money back. And I'll tell you what, if you look that up, the story is hilarious, but it's absolutely true. And when you listen to it, you're just going, yep, that's Youngstown. I could see that whole thing going. You could just picture what these guys look like and everything. So why were these guys shooting at you?
Because my bass player decided to lean over the bar and grab for himself a free bottle of whiskey.
Oh, okay. That explains that one. That explains that one. That explains that one. Oh, man, that is awesome. I knew
something was wrong when we went to get paid in the manager's office. He had every bit of cash he had in his safe. He had it out on the desk, and he had guns laying on the table. And we wanted to collect what we were owed. And he said, take out what you think you're owed.
Oh, man.
And so we started to take out what we thought we were owed. He said, no, put half of that back. And we didn't say anything. We just wanted to get out of there because now they were pointing the guns at us. Oh. And we left what we thought would be quietly. And upon entering our vehicles, they opened the windows to the second floor of the club and started spraying the alley, which was where we were parked. Not only in our transportation, but also in our equipment truck.
Oh, wow. That's wild. You know what? And you talk about that back office and these mob bars. I know exactly what that looks like, you know, with the gun sitting on the table and maybe a baseball bat sitting in the corner and a shotgun over here. Oh, yeah, man. I just picture that. I could just see it, and I can picture practically what the guy looks like. Man.
It's not the Americana we want to put on a poster.
No, not quite. Now, how is there one gig or one show or something that you think that was really, really big? I mean, that you look back on and go, man, that was like some kind of big festival or something. Is there one or two gigs that stick out in your mind as like, man, this is what Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels was all about?
No, but there was a group that sticks out in my mind as being the best group I was ever involved with. And I called them the Thrashing Brothers. And they were with me on 3 albums, How I Spent My Vacation, Naked But Not Dead, and Got Change for $1 Million. And those were probably the best musicians I've ever worked with. So.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
That sticks out in my mind. You know, people stick out in my mind, not performance.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's good. So you would put those guys on like a list of maybe some underappreciated artists, because I know every city has these guys that are just every bit as good, or if not better, the people out there. But for some reason, you know, they don't get the laurels that they deserved, or maybe the chips didn't fall their way. So do you you have some other guys that that come to mind, like maybe on the Detroit scene that was like that, or like, man, they had this top band, but for some reason they just didn't get that break or that push over the top?
It is about the break. That has a lot to do with it. But you have to realize that a lot of young men and women want to do rock and roll. But if you're with a girlfriend, she's pregnant, you got to get married, you quickly discover that your dream may not be making enough money for you quick enough to support a family. And so if you're a family man and you're inclined to have those kids and raise them, then you got to quit the music thing and get a real job. Once you're competing in the arena for the music, it's highly competitive and cutthroat, and probably one of the filthiest businesses I'm aware of in my life. Right. And yet it exists because it's entertainment. And one thing we love in this country is entertainment. We love it in our music. We love it in our music. We love it in our literature. We love our plays. We love our musicals. We love our symphonies. Music is and creativity. Ballets are wonderful too. I mean,
right.
But that's one of the first things they cut in budgets in high schools.
Isn't that amazing? When I look at even some of the guys from the Youngstown area that have made it as studio musicians or sidemen for big acts and that have really went on to lucrative careers in the music business, and you for some reason they look at that and like, this guy doesn't need to learn how to play the drums, or that always, because all my kids play instruments too. And it's like, I couldn't imagine them cutting it out. For some kids, that is the whole thing. Even like art, maybe art is their thing. Maybe music is their thing. And there's ways to go with it. And it seems like sometimes they just kind of ignore that. And that really bothers me a lot.
Yeah, I think it's not fair, but athletics are important to schools. You see how much money is being generated at the college level, even.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, the NFL is drafting. There are people now in the NFL that were drafted right from high school.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it is crazy.
Same with the NBA. They started looking at some of these kids in high school or in 8th or 9th grade, and they're already keeping an eye on them. Come on, man.
They're scouting.
Yeah, it's nuts out there. So what would your, there's been so many changes in the music business now. I mean, I think it's more difficult than ever to get out there, even though you have more, I think you have more avenues to promote your music and to promote your products. But it doesn't seem like they got the people giving the artists the push that they need to get over the top. Do you feel that way? Do you see it that way?
Yeah, I feel like there are no strong hands in the music industry as we speak. And if you want to do something and accomplish it, you have to do it through coalitions. Have you ever watched, for example, a movie, and you see the Warner Brothers thing, which we've all known from the time we were young, and they're because they're the distributor. But when it comes to the movie companies that made that movie, sometimes you have a list of, it's 5 or 6 deep.
Yeah, right.
One movie company cooperated with another movie company who cooperated with another movie company, all to get the budget to be able to do the film.
Right. Right.
And that's where we're at today. The only thing good that I'm aware of that happened in my industry is what technically what has happened with digital. That really made a lot of things a lot easier and faster for people in my business.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it has done that. But, it just seems like nothing's the same anymore, I'm sure, I'm sure you've seen so many changes over the years. So what is it that is kept you at it? You talk about, trying to keep a band together. And like you say, somebody gets pregnant, somebody gets arrested. This guy just says, forget about it. I'm working with my dad's construction company, to make it to your point, to the point where you're at now. I mean, what did it take to get to where you're at right now?
a lot of lean years and a lot of profitable years.
Uh-huh.
You have to take the good with the bad. It's like a marriage. You know, it's you for better or for worse, for richer, for poorer. It's you're married to it. And I'm going to be 80 in February, and this is what I've done for my life's work.
I think that is so
I've
awesome.
I have 33 CDs out. I wanted you to know that.
33 CDs. I think that is just so awesome. And you never had like a real job. You never really, you
Right.
stuck with the music, and that's carried you from once you started doing it to this point in time. I think that's amazing. You know, and I think it's so cool that, you know, you could do exactly what you wanted to do and your love, and you were able to take that all the way to 80 years old. I think that's amazing. It's fantastic. I think everybody should be able to do that with their career.
I don't.
Oh, you don't? Oh, okay.
It is amazing.
Uh-huh.
It is amazing, but the sacrifice that comes with it is not so amazing. And in fact, it's pretty despicable. The hearts you break, the people you have to hurt, the people that you leave behind, putting your passion over the love they have for you, that's not an easy choice.
Wow.
It's a selfish choice.
Wow. I have never looked at it that way. That is, wow. That just blew me away, Mitch.
Well, hey, I'll send you the bill.
All right. That sounds good. Hey, listen, we got to wrap things up. But Mitch Ryder from the Detroit Wheels, it has been such a pleasure to talk to you. And I just think we had such an awesome and interesting conversation. And people are going to be able to see you on stage. And we got the big show. We're commemorating Ruf Records' 30th anniversary. It's coming up Friday, November 8th. Robbins Theater. You got Ghalia Volt. You got Canned Heat. You got Bernard Ellison. You got the sensational Samantha Fish and the legendary Mitch Ryder from the Detroit Wheels. Mitch, can't wait to see you on November 8th. I know you guys are going to rock the place. And once again, thank you for the awesome conversation. And we'll see you February 8th here in Warren, or November 8th here in Warren.
Freddie.
Hey, thanks,
Sounds
Mitch.
good, Freddie.
That was awesome, man. I really appreciated that. Thank you.